beautiful day here, Wednesday, so happy to have you join us here this afternoon. I would now like to call this meeting to order and turn the opening remarks and how to manage this virtual meeting over to Jill Raycroft, our CEO. Jill?
Okay, thank you. So I guess I'm welcoming you to our virtual AGM, and you'll notice that the video and microphones are off, but the chat and the Q&A options are available. So your chat option should be off to the side or under more, depending on how you have your screen set up. So if you don't see a chat icon in the bottom black bar of your screen, just move to the right under more and it should be the first option. The other thing is under Q&A, you'll see that. So the first thing we're going to ask you to do is please type your name and company into the chat area now. During the meeting, if you have questions regarding a motion being presented, please enter it in the chat area. Motions will be moved and seconded in the chat area. To keep the meeting moving along, we have assigned people to do that, but feel free to jump in ahead of them if you can. Then once the motion has been moved and seconded, you will vote responding to a poll that will appear on the screen. You'll have one of three choices: in favor, oppose, or abstain. If you have any questions about the motion at hand, please post that in the chat area then. If you have questions about other issues, these will be addressed in item 14 of the agenda and should be placed in the Q&A area at the bottom. So you'll see that space there. At that time, if you're noted in a Q&A area, your mic will be unmuted, and then you can ask your question accordingly. Media requests should come in following the adjournment of the meeting. I think we have a couple of those. So hopefully there are no questions. Quick question, I'll leave it open to the chat for 1 second if anyone has any questions there about what we're doing. Lisa's monitoring that. Okay, it looks like we're good. All right, then I will pass it over to you, Greg.
Great, thanks, Jill. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. For those of you who may not know me, my name is Greg Suds from West City Honda, and I'm the 2020 president of the Belleville Chamber of Commerce. We are holding our AGM of the Belleville Chamber of Commerce virtually and later than expected due to the COVID-19 shutdown. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and we have met quorum. Let me begin by extending a warm welcome to those of you joining us today, our chamber members, city hall officials, chamber staff, board members, and our local media. If I may take a moment to acknowledge our board members directly. These individuals commit their time and energy to support the work of the Belleville Chamber of Commerce. I, as president, would like to personally thank each one of them for all that they do in support of. They are as follows: past President John Tour of Wilkinson and Company LLP, our first Vice President Peter Kempenaar of Task Force Engineering, second Vice President Anthony Callahan of McDougall Insurance, third Vice President Jessica Klein, Canadian Cancer Society, and our directors, Dr. Anne-Marie Vaughn, Loyalist College, Helen Wheeler from La Palm Moving Systems, Kevin McCann, Sigma Stretch Films, Sean Stickle, Friendly Fires, Karen Post, City of Belleville, Dale Horde, Microage, Sandra Leslie, Meta Employment Services, Christina Wallace of Wallace Law, and Wendy Keller from Freedom 55. A short time ago, I spoke about 2020 marking the start of a new decade and that 2020 would be a very good year. Just 5 months into the Chamber's 156th year, the landscape has certainly been upended. We are witnessing an unprecedented health threat and economic tsunami as individuals, businesses, and governments are attempting to adjust to this pandemic. Unfortunately, there is no playbook to follow, and the magnitude of human and economic loss is still yet to be seen. Over the course of the last several months, the Belleville Chamber has been very engaged with its membership. Jill and her staff have been supporting the membership through numerous webinars, emails, texts, and phone calls, providing much needed information, clarity, and support wherever possible. Many local members have also provided expertise to share with the Chamber. Members such as Templeman LLP, Wilkinson and Company LLP, Relay Technologies, Trenval, Loyalist College, along with our local MP Neil Ellis and MPP Todd Smith. We thank you and all others for this support. As you are aware, the Chamber is a membership-driven organization, and we are sensitive to the financial struggles our members are currently facing. As an organization, we did have the good fortune to realign our membership renewals to a January 1 renewal date. Although this created some financial challenges for the 2019 fiscal year due to proration and the elimination of lapsed members to be presented later, it has proven to be a blessing this year. Some chambers provincially still utilize staggered membership renewals, and as such are finding it difficult to collect during this period. This change has given us a better snapshot of our revenues within the first quarter. This also allowed us to budget more effectively, permitting us to react and adjust if a decrease in membership occurred. From a cash flow perspective, we collect and carry those revenues early, and this year especially, it has been beneficial to the Chamber's fiscal health. We are in a far better position this year due to having made this change than if we had continued as before. For those members who have not yet renewed, we are sensitive to their situation and are allowing them an extension. Now more than ever, some of our members need to utilize the resources provided by the Chamber, and now would not be the time to cut that support due to this crisis. Yet in spite of all this, we will persevere and move forward. Human health will in time recover as businesses and as will business and economic stability. For now, we must adapt as best we can by remaining healthy, both physically, mentally, and as well financially. On a positive note, looking ahead, we are optimistic we can still safely provide, albeit a different variation of city events this summer. We are working with the community partners, the City of Belleville, and the local health unit to ensure that any event we arrange can and will be safe for all to enjoy by following all necessary health and safety guidelines. We will continue to carefully monitor the situation and may adjust our plans as necessary. Thank you. I would now like to make a motion to approve today's agenda.
Anthony, will you move that and type that in? And seconded, John? Can you type that in?
Show up okay, Lisa?
Just waiting for John. Yep, John is seconded. I am now posting the poll. If attendees could please vote, please. And it looks like, just wait one moment. And we have, I'll give it just 5 more seconds for anyone that still wants to vote. Looks like the motion is passed with 21 in favor, 0 opposed, 0 abstained.
Great, so the motion is carried. Thank you. I would now like to make a motion to adopt the minutes from the previous AGM. And I believe those were sent out to the participants ahead of this, this afternoon's AGM.
Okay.
Craig,
Yes.
just the script there in presenting the motion, just if anybody did happen to look at them, that please note that the asterisk regarding the minutes, that the written documentation, I think that needs to be presented.
Okay, bear with me here.
And I can speak to that, I guess, if you want, just to say that The written documentation has been lost. We're not sure if it's a transition in staff, change in computer hardware, or even a flood. But the minutes that are presented are a compilation of information from that meeting based on the agenda, media coverage, and communication to the Chamber network following the AGM. We may not know who moved or seconded the motions, but we know they were carried. No additional discussion or motions were presented, and approval of these minutes as presented will acknowledge the meeting took place and financial reports were presented to the members present. So considering those, the motion is to adopt the minutes from the previous AGM as presented.
And could we have the mover type into the chat? Helen, there we go, and seconded. I am now launching the poll. I'll give that just a moment. And a couple of more seconds for people to vote. Okay. And I am now ending the poll, and it looks like the motion is carried. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
So now I would like to turn it over to Jill to present the CEO report.
Yes, so there's so much to cover today. I will be relatively brief. I will say that one of the biggest things we did in 2019, or at the conclusion of 2019, was prepare our membership guide. And if anyone hasn't seen it, it is really a good reflection on what happened in 2019. So this includes Greg's message, John's message, and some of the things that we did. More than what I did report on last year were how many people attended our breakfast. So last year we had 700 people attend 10 breakfasts in 2019. We had Mayor Mitch Panchuk. We hosted the largest event ever with the newly remodeled the Ramada dining room, Windows by the Bay. We hosted almost 170 people there for their mayor's breakfast. So that was the largest mayor's breakfast we've hosted. We also hosted MP Neil Ellis. We had Meet the Federal Candidates Chamber Chat. We had a panel on death and taxes. We had the Quinte Business Achievement Award winners. We had Clearview Consulting, and we had Hexo. We had more than 500 people attend 8 member mingles in 2019, hosted by Alarm Systems, Crate Marine, Burke's Funeral Home, the Children's Safety Village, Tipper Financial, CMHA, Shorelines Casino, and the Belleville General Hospital Foundation. We participated with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce and the Canadian Chamber of Commerce AGMs and policy resolution conferences. And I also acted as a member of the Chamber Network on the Ontario Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. That position now concluded in April with the AGM for the OCC. But it was an interesting couple of years that offered me an opportunity to really represent Eastern Ontario and the fate of small business when the Ontario Chamber Board gets direction to present to the federal or the provincial government. So those were good things. We certainly had a few things happen internally last year with, first of all, we had a flood in the summer, and then we upgraded all our computer systems in August, and then Rosie moved on to a different role, and Matt also moved on to a different role. So we ended up having 2 new staff start in December. Lisa Grills, our membership development coordinator, has been an active supporter of everything membership since she's joined us, and I have to give her a great deal of credit for, creating our membership guide, our process of renewal in January, because we overhauled everything that way. And we also just welcomed a new person in this past couple weeks. Just to give you an update, Anna Freiberg has now joined the Chamber in the role of Visitor Services. And through those roles, and Susan, of course, remains here, and through the Visitor Services and city events contracts, we support that money that we receive from the city. You may have heard of some of the events that we're doing to try and combat the physical distancing requirements, or at least support be compliant with physical distancing but still host events. There's lots to say, but I hope that you are following regularly with the chamber chats. That's usually where you'll hear what is going on a weekly basis. And certainly feel free to contact me if you have any questions about what we're operating with. So on that note, Greg, I will leave it and let you move on.
Perfect. Thanks. Thank you, Jill. I would now like to introduce Anthony Callahan. Anthony is our second vice, and Anthony is with McDougall Insurance. He is going to provide today's membership report.
Good afternoon, everyone. So as Greg mentioned, I'm the second vice president this year, which also means I'm the membership committee chair. So I head up the membership committee as well. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of 2019 and going into 2020, where our membership stands and some things about our membership. I know Jill and Greg had already mentioned a lot of points I was going to, but I will review a few more. Currently, our membership is at 442 active members. As we alluded to earlier, we did a complete overhaul of our membership procedures in 2019. The big one was shifting from rolling renewals to a January renewal for everybody. All membership dues are now invoiced at the start of the year, which is huge for us. Only the members this year that were invoiced were ones that were in good standing. So only members in good standing were invoiced in January 2020. And it actually cleaned out a lot of outstanding unpaid memberships and members who haven't been active or paid up in the last couple of years. So it greatly allowed us to get a better idea of how many actual active members we have at any one time, which is huge for our financing and budgeting purposes. As we'll see on the financial report, our membership dues are a large chunk of our revenue. Now, for example, the members that we've already invoiced in January 2020, we've already collected 71% of the dues, which isn't far off what was paid in the entirety of 2019. So this will now be more accurate on our financial statements. It means less guessing for budgeting purposes about dues that haven't yet been collected. So our membership dues also were slightly increased in 2020. It's the first time we did it in 8 years. Another big change that Joe mentioned was we welcomed Lisa Grills, December 9th, I believe was her first day, 2019. Very excited to have her on board. The membership committee, and in particular Lisa, has spent a ton of time and effort revamping our membership guide, which looks amazing. Jill provided a copy there. There's also a digital copy online as well. Suggest everybody check that out. We also continue to work on our ambassador program. That matches new members with volunteers from our membership committee to try to get them engaged and get them out to functions. We're always continuing to find ways to promote and improve our member-to-member discounts. Our member-to-member discounts are a lot of our members aren't aware of, so we're looking to promote them and also add to them if possible this year. We're always looking at new ways to attract new members and engage our current members. Whether this is trying new events or trying new ways of communication. Those are especially important in today's climate, obviously, as things have greatly changed for 2020. One note that Jill touched on that I thought was a very good stat was that more than 700 people, as she said, attended 10 breakfasts last year in 2019, and 500 people attended 8 mingles. So, we did have quite a good turnout last year to a lot of our breakfasts and mingles. We're happy to see that. Last year was also the 3rd year we presented our Cornerstone Awards, which I think at our President's dinner in February, which I think has been a big hit. So, obviously COVID-19 has interfered greatly with our plans this year in terms of engagement. But it's also created up some opportunities to us for other ways to reach out. We've purchased Zoom now, and, we had a virtual breakfast with Todd Smith at the end of April. We had one with Neil early May. Both were very well and were well attended. The membership committee, on the whole, was very excited for 2020. We're looking at tweaking some events such as a golf tournament, maybe seeing, what else we can do to engage new members. But however, going forward with the way things are, we'll just have to keep a close eye and see what we can and can't do from this year and go from there. So thanks very much.
Great. Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Jill. May I have a motion to accept these reports?
I'm just looking for a seconder, and we've got a seconder. And I am now launching the poll. And I'll just give it another second. If anybody wants to vote. And another second. And I am now ending the poll. And there are the results.
Great. Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you. Now I'd like to call upon past President John Tour if he could please present to us our 2019 financial statements. Turn it over to you, John.
Thank you, Greg. So just want to say hello to everyone. Good afternoon on this lovely day during an extended tax season, definitely a different environment. So I will present the financial statements for the December 31st, 2019 year end. So we did have a reviewed financial statement. So again, a review isn't a full-blown audit, but it's a little bit less level of assurance. But at the same time, we do still feel that these financial statements present our financial position at the end of the year, as well as our statement of operations for the year. And you will see the May 19th, 2020 date, which is the date that it was approved and accepted by the board. So we'll just turn to the statement of financial position. So there's a couple of key items to highlight there. So you'll see a definite decrease in our cash as well as our AR position at year end. So as both Greg and Anthony alluded to, we did make the decision to have our memberships renewed sort of at the start of the year. So basically for the last half of the year, we almost have basically taken out a full year's of membership revenues for certain members. As an example, if they had a July renewal, we would have only renewed them for 6 months up until the end of December, instead of renewing them for the entire year. While this definitely did have an impact on our financial position as well as our operations for this December 31st year end, we were willing to make that hit as it sort of looks on our financial statements in order to help us going forward. Just from an operational standpoint, having all of our membership renewed in January, it allows us to do it in one swoop at that one time. It gives us a much clearer picture come March, April, which members are renewing and which ones we might be losing, and allows us to focus on bringing in new members and other member activities throughout the rest of the year. So while that may look bad on paper, from an operational standpoint, we do believe it sets us up for success going forward, although we do have that 1 year financial hit. We had previously around the December in 2016, we had made the decision to remove deferred revenues out of the financial statements, which did take into account membership over that 1 year. So really, when you look at our net asset position, the decrease there, which a lot of people look at as our retained earnings or operating surplus, the decrease from 150,000 to 93,000, that really does bring us in line to where we were before we moved the deferred revenue out in 2016. So it does sort of bring us into line with December 2015 statements. So it almost mirrors up those two procedures a little bit. So I just wanted to highlight that. You will see their capital assets. We did have to undergo not only some repairs, but also had to upgrade our computer equipment again. We did have some equipment that was old and failing. So we decided that we needed to take that hit this past year. So moving on to our statement of operations. So you'll see there a couple of highlights. Event revenues down by approximately 50,000 there. So in 2018, we did have a couple of special one-time events such as hometown hockey, those type of events where we had both the event revenue as well as, if you look down under the expenses events, the corresponding decrease in these expenditures. So there was a couple of one-time events that happened in 2018 that didn't happen in 2019. So you see both a corresponding decrease in the event revenues as well as the decrease in expenses. The other big highlight there is just under the memberships, you will see a decrease in 40,000. That is largely impacted by those changes that we made. We do fully expect to see that number increase in 2020, although like Greg mentioned at the start of this presentation, with the COVID situation ongoing, it likely won't be as high as budgeted, but we hopefully, as the economic landscape and improves, as well as the overall environment improves, we hopefully still continue to build on that. You will also see under the expenses, bad debts. We did undergo a significant overhaul and cleanup of our membership revenues to make sure we removed anything that was old and outstanding so we could just focus and go forward. So between those two, it did have a significant impact on our bottom line in the current year, but we do believe it allows us to set up for success going forward. So those are really the biggest changes with the financial statements. You will see office and administration up a little bit. We did have some membership guides, some work on that, which has continued a little bit into 2020, as well as some additional expenditures for the office. We did have some repairs, as well as some other office work that we did have to undergo in this past year. So we were in a good financial position. We still are, we believe, in a strong financial position. So those were things that just needed to get done. So we wanted to get them done in 2019 and get them out of the way. So that really highlights the changes in our net assets and our statement of operations for the year. Just this, moving on to the statement of cash flow. So this just shows the where our cash was spent over the past year. In most cases, for not-for-profit organizations, it isn't as beneficial, but it is still required to be in there for accounting standard purposes. Our accounting policies in our notes to the financial statements, we have not had any change in accounting policies throughout the year. And we'll just turn to page 8, capital assets. So you will not see any amount under the net capital assets in 2019, but as I previously mentioned, we did purchase some additional new computer equipment, so that is reflected in these notes to the financial statements. In note 5, City of Belleville contract. So this just breaks down our funds from the City of Belleville contract. So again, our contract revenues did increase up by 20,000. And I didn't see any members on the initial chat of the city included in this meeting, but if there happen to be any members who have joined, I would like to say thank you on behalf of the Chamber for our continued relationship and your support. Just so everyone knows, those contract revenues, a large portion of that is for us to run the events on behalf of the city, such as Waterfront, Art Fest, Santa Claus Parade, and a few other events throughout the year, but a couple of those being the biggest ones, as well as the volunteer the volunteer information aspect of that, and just the travel components. So that's what the contract revenues go for. Past year, we did have some special events, so we did have expense reimbursements that are included in those figures. So, and we'll see there in note 6, uncertainty due to the economic consequences. So really, if anyone is looking at financial statements, this is a pretty common note that you will see as a result of the COVID-19 coronavirus outbreak is that there is a lot of economic uncertainty to any company or organization. It is just difficult to really quantify the aspect and reflect that in any financial statements. So it is just highlighting that there is uncertainty just and the impact on these financial statements going forward. So that is the presentation of the 2019 financial statements. I will just go to the chat for a second. If there is any questions regarding the financial statements, if anyone just wants to type them into the chat quickly, I will do my best to respond. Seeing no questions, it looks like I will ask someone put forth a motion to accept the 2000 financial statements.
So I will make a motion to approve the 2019 financial statements as presented.
And seconded by Jim O'Brien, and I will now launch the poll. And just one more second to make sure everyone is in, and I am now ending the poll. And there are your results.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, John, for that presentation. It's appreciated. Now, our Constitution also requires an approval of members as part of its general meeting. We've collected the names of those organizations who have requested to join the Chamber and are currently in good standing. The list here represents the new members since our last AGM, which was held June 3rd, 2019. I'll let everybody just take a moment to kind of review that, that list of new members. And I would like to call for a motion to approve those.
Got a motion, looking for a seconder. And it got a seconder. I will launch the poll. And just give it a second more. If anybody wants to jump on there. Okay, I am now ending the poll, and here are your results. And you have the results.
Great, so that motion is carried, and I
Right.
would like to take a moment to thank and welcome those new members of the Chamber, the Belleville Chamber of Commerce. So welcome and thank you. So moving forward, we have a presentation of recommended amendments to the bylaws. We are currently pursuing accreditation, and there have been 3 articles identified to be missing from our current bylaws in order to be compliant. These are the first 3 that you see noted here. Given the current pandemic situation, we've added the 4th bylaw amendment to allow for electronic means, which will effectively allow this meeting to be considered compliant as well. I will pass it over to Jill to further explain, and if you have any questions about the wording, please enter this into the chat area.
Okay, thank you, Greg. I'll just move this over. And if anybody has had a chance to see, we've posted this for some time. It sits on our website currently, and then these were also forwarded to those who had registered for the meeting today. Hopefully everyone was able to get that package. So most notably, in addition to Article 7, under meetings, under 7.2, the annual general meeting is meant to seek approval for the reviewed financial statements and actions of the board and to appoint the accountants for review for the following fiscal year. So this addition in red is meant to be compliant in accordance with the accreditation request. We had not actually, up until about 2 years ago, conducted any financial review at all. So this was what was initiated in pursuit of the accreditation piece. So this is now our third year. So we'll be able to apply accordingly by adding this in. We also, because of the pandemic situation, are forced to meet electronically. Typically we would have scheduled our annual general meeting for the end of March at the latest. That has been compromised a little bit the last couple of years in order to get the financial review in place. We thought we would be ready this year, and then of course everything has happened. So we've made the addition of 7.15, if the directors or members of the Board of Trade call a meeting of the members pursuant to the Act or the bylaws, those directors or members, as the case may be, may determine that the meeting shall be held entirely by means of a telephonic, electronic, or other communication facility that permits all participants to communicate adequately with each other during the meeting. This is also why we have the chat and the Q&A functions available. So I'm going to leave it open for a couple seconds. If anybody has any questions regarding the wording around that, these technically come from the bylaw builder provided by the Board of Trade Act. So they are consistent with that document. If there's any question, I'll just check and see. Okay, I see that Liz Intima has an issue with one of the amendments. Could you unmute her, please?
I can. Hang on, Liz. Where are you? There we are. Okay, Liz, you have now been unmuted.
Hi, guys. I had a question in regards to the amendment about our membership fees in case of a dissolution. Can you explain to me the reasoning behind, like if I'm understanding it correctly, if the BCC dissolves or amalgamates, we lose our membership fees. Am I understanding that correctly?
So I'll move over to that slide here because that's the next one here. So yeah, I think that the presumption is that in the event of dissolution, it is because there's no financial means. And now that after payment of all debts and liabilities, and if anybody wants to describe further, this is the actual dissolution that's recommended through the Board of Trade Act. From a financial perspective, I'm going to say that this has to, that if at a general meeting of members called to consider the matter of dissolution, the members would also be consulted through this process.
And is that in our bylaws somewhere as well?
This is a new addition to our bylaws. This doesn't exist at all. This is a new article.
So in the event of a dissolution, members would have a vote at that time. Is that in our bylaws?
There's nothing in our bylaws about dissolution. So as a requirement of, so right now, if the chamber were not able to continue, there's nothing in our bylaws to say that we can stop. So and part of the challenge is we've actually seen two chambers close by who have gone through a very similar process, but without this in their bylaws, they aren't able to actually amalgamate or move into another one because they can't dissolve. The dissolution is also important because if you have, for example, there's a Board of Trade in Sterling that was instituted long before we were, or around the same time we were, and because they haven't dissolved, we can't extend our borders to include that space. So the purpose of dissolution isn't so much about managing the money, though that would be important, it really is more about removing our overview, or our what's the word? So our district, our control over the district, so that another board of trade would be able to do that. I mean, we can certainly, if there's anybody who has, if anybody from the board wanted to, we can adjust this.
I guess my concern comes in with the fact that no portion of our membership is refunded to us. Instead, once the chamber has finalized all of their expenses, anything remaining goes to somebody else completely and does not come back to the member who has paid it, if that makes sense.
Yep, I do. So I'm going to pass it to the board, because I'm really an instrument of them. So you could alter. So we have 14.1 as one article and 14.2 as the second article. So we could simply remove the remaining property of the chamber shall be distributed or disposed of as determined by the board.
Because I wouldn't have a problem voting on something like that at the time. It's more the wording right now where I kind of go, doesn't really give me a choice.
Yep. So Greg, I will pass it to you.
Thanks, Jill. So Liz, thank you for that. I mean, certainly, you know, it is kind of open. I certainly understand that. In this event, as Jill had mentioned, in the unlikely event that it were to be dissolved, those fees, as it stands, would move to the other board if we were able to continue through another board of trade or chamber. I guess in terms of that, we can make an amendment to that. I'm not sure how that might look, or how the wording of that might look. In the event of dissolution of the chamber, no portion of paid membership fees shall be refunded to the members. Yeah, I'm not sure how to proceed with that, actually.
So what I would suggest is we could alter 14.1 to read, shall be distributed or diagnosed or disposed of, cancel from 2, 1 or more registered charities or other educational, scientific, or philanthropic organizations. We could strike that. So, okay, so we have two things we actually have to do. First of all, we have to make a motion to approve these for discussion. So I'm going to suggest that if we make a motion to approve them for discussion, so do we have a mover and a seconder?
I would move to make that motion to discuss further.
Okay, so, all right, so if we have that, so now we can discuss them, because we really do have to make sure that all the we have, I believe we have 30 voting members participating in this, so we'll have to see. So now the motion is going to change. Do we have an amended motion to accept? So I'm going to suggest that we might want to take these separately. So let's go back to Article 7. So if we were to move that Article 7 be approved as
submitted,
do I have a first and a seconder for that? Just put that into the chat. So Anthony has moved that. Helen Wheeler has seconded the motion to approve Article 7 as written. Lisa, are you able to put together a quick poll on that one?
Yeah, I'm just going to edit this poll, so give me 2 seconds. So it is motion, hang on, I'm going to edit this one. Motion.
Do you edit or do you
to
add one? Can you just add it to that question?
Motion to accept bylaw amendments for Article 7?
Yes.
Article, yeah, hang on. Article 7. 7. Okay, I am saving this. And now, hang on for a second. I am motion to accept bylaw amendment for Article 7. I am now launching the poll. And I'll just give it a moment. And we have 19 in favor, 1 abstaining. I'll just give it a moment more.
Yes, we should
And-
wait. We should wait till we have at least,
We do have 51%.
but we
We
need
are
to have
not-
enough but we need to have enough, we have 51% of the participants voting.
Yeah, so we have 21 people voting.
Okay, but we have 33 participants on the line. 4 can't vote. So we should have,
So we are at 21 voting.
so there was a point of order there requested regarding discussion. This for Article 7, I didn't, we weren't really
Oh.
moving into discussion for that one. But
Okay, so I am now ending this poll with 21 registered votes. You okay with that?
Greg?
Yep.
And hang on. And here are your results.
Okay, so this is in favor of accepting the bylaw amendment for Article 7 only,
Right.
because we
that-
had no discussion on that one. The discussion seemed to cut, sorry, and my apologies, the discussion kind of interrupted the conversation. We jumped to Article 14 before we completed these. So right now, I would say that we will divide those.
Okay,
So-
I will create new polls.
Yes,
And then we'll come back to 14.
right. So I will move this over to the next, we didn't discuss. So this is Article 11. This is another article that's required in order for us to apply for accreditation. We simply have to have a discussion about the banking arrangements in our bylaws. So Article 11 includes 11.2 and 11.3. The full bylaws were listed and these amendments were included in, this is a summary of those. So there is on Article 11.1, but 11.2 is that the bank accounts of the chamber shall be maintained with one of its member banks or trust companies. We currently do that. The signing of an Article 11.3, the signing authorities for the chamber bank accounts shall be the CEO and the officers, and all payments shall require the signature of at least 2 signing authorities, which is our current practice.
Process.
So can I have a motion to accept Article 11 as presented? So that's Anthony. And Lisa Ann, will use as a second. So I will open this up for discussion. Okay, Greg, I'm not seeing any discussion, so if you would like to.
So we will motion, I guess, carried in that event?
Well, now we would take the vote.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank
hang on. So if everybody's ready, I'm going to launch that poll.
And forgive us, we're it was hard to imagine how many polls we might need in the process here.
Yes, so we are currently at 18 in
We should have at
favor.
least-
19, 20 in favor. I'll give it a second more. 21 in favor, none opposed, none abstained. I will now end the poll. And here are your results.
Okay,
So then it would be carried on Article 11 with respect to banking.
All right.
So thank
Okay.
you.
and now we'll move on to the third article, which is Article 14,
Correct.
which is the dissolution of Chamber of Commerce. And so somebody has mentioned that the same dissolution distribution clause is in Meta's bylaws too. A requirement for charitable status. Maybe John may have more insight on that though. Because we do operate as a nonprofit, but under the Board of Trade Act.
Yeah. So, and it was Sandra that responded to that. But either way, like from my perspective, is that the 14.1. I don't think 14.1 would change. That's not really where the contention is. And this is really what sort of is required in a lot of these cases. The concern really comes into 14.2. You sort of look at what's the pure bylaw versus what's the reality. So at the members, I know that was brought up just about having a say, but it does say under 14.1 that upon dissolution as approved by the members. So the members do have a say in that dissolution before that happens. So a lot of times that would be timed probably to a year end. So it's not like you're losing on a full year of membership dues. You could, if there are some serious concerns, change 14.2 in the event of a dissolution. A portion of paid membership may be refunded to the members at the board and the members' discretion. I'm wondering if that would address people's concerns. Maybe just type that in the chat. I know it was one specific member that had brought up the concerns.
And Jill, did you see the question from Melissa at KKP? Mm-hmm. Okay.
So John, do you see the addition? So if we were to add debts and liabilities in 14.1 and proportional reimbursement of membership fees as funds are available, I guess here's the question. And one of the things that we would not have been able to do with our rolling membership before is that we would have always had someone with a portion of membership that was still relevant for the year. Everybody's membership is effectively ended on December 31 now. So if dissolution were to happen on December 31, there would be no outstanding dues.
Yeah, exactly. But there could be a situation where it does happen throughout the year, and there may or may not be a portion of so I would recommend if we although like it was mentioned, there are some where it would have specifically that wording in there. But if we just change the wording, if there are significant concerns in the event of this dissolution, the chamber, a portion of paid membership may be refunded to members at the members and board's discretion. If that wording would be acceptable to everyone, make that change and go from there.
Okay, so I will just, if you bear with me, I will kind of move out of presentation mode and see if I can make that adjustment. Does this reflect this?
I think he had added in there at the membership and board's discretion. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, at the board and members' discretion. Sorry if everyone got a very close up of my face there. I was just trying to read Jill's wording. So my apologies for that. Or you're welcome, depending on your point of view. So.
Okay. So in the event of dissolution of the chamber, a portion of paid membership fees may be refunded at the board's and members' discretion. Should we?
We can ask if that would satisfy, and then we can take a vote on that.
So we have a so just a wording change from Christina. I think we did put forth that motion as presented. We do have Lisa Ann Chatton as a seconder, so now we'll open it up for any additional discussion in the chat. And then if we see someone, we can unmute them. So it looks like Liz, who brought up the additional concern, is happy with the adjustment. So based on that, it looks like we have the motion put forward. We do have a seconder. We've done discussion, and now if we would put
So now we would take,
poll.
yeah, and take a vote. This is a vote on the amended motion.
Yep, I have motion to accept bylaw amendments for Article 14 as amended.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
So I am going to launch the poll. We are currently at 21 in favor. I'll give it a moment more in case there's someone that wants to jump in there. And I am about to end the poll, and here are your results.
Okay.
Great. So motion carried.
Okay.
So now, since we've done all the bylaw amendments individually, we don't need to proceed with an overall. We'll just continue to our next portion,
Yes,
which would be 13. We would need a motion. Pardon me?
Yeah, I was just going to say that because we've now accepted the recommendation to bylaw 7.2, requiring the AGM to include the appointment.
Right. Accountant to include the appointment of accountants for the purpose of conducting an annual financial review. A motion to appoint Welch & Company to review 2020 books and present financial statements should now be made. I so move.
Okay, looking for a seconder.
Can someone second that motion?
Okay, and John Tour is seconded. I am launching the poll.
Thank you.
And I'll give it a moment.
And just a reminder, if there are any Q&A, we're coming up to the 14th agenda item where we can discuss other things if there's any additional motions or questions from the floor. So please place them in the Q&A now.
I am currently at 20 votes. I'll give it a second more. And I am now ending the poll. And here are your results.
Great. So motion carried for Welch & Company for the review. Okay. Thank you. So now, as Jill mentioned, we basically are going to call for any additional motions or questions from the floor. So for those of you that have joined us here today, if there's anything else that we can answer, please move to put that in the chat, and we will identify the speaker and unmute their microphone.
There is a comment from Lisa Ann. I don't know if somebody wants to have a look at that. I can unmute her. And Lisa, I am unmuting you.
Not sure if you can hear me.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, hi, thank you. I just have some questions, and this is the first chamber meeting that I have accessed, but I'm a little bit confused about the board process where the chair is putting forward motions rather than asking for a motion from the floor. Is this, are you following Robert's rules for your process, or is this a different format? I'm just a little confused.
That is a good point, Lisa. Thank you. I am still learning my my process for that as chair for this AGM. So I don't know if there's additional comments there that might back that up. I'm not sure.
I do
Lisa?
realize that being under the a different format and a Zoom meeting, that there are some
Challenges, yes.
challenges and leniency, certainly. I mean, we experienced that with the Hastings and Prince Edward District School Board as well. However, I just, I was hoping, in case, I think this is recorded, is it not?
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, that was why I was suggesting that I would send an email, as I didn't want to bring up anything problematic. I just didn't want to lose my.
Yeah.
I'll let John speak to that.
I'll just jump in here, Lisa. Hi, it's John Tour. It's not really part of a usual chamber board process. It's just we very specifically, given the Zoom agenda and that given it's a new format going through this Zoom process, we had a very specific sort of putting forward that motion as well as a seconder sort of all in place. And we went through this process in advance to try and make this go through as smoothly as possible. So it's not a usual, the chair just puts forward the motion all the times. It was really done this way in order just to try and make it go as smooth as possible given the new format. So
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your clarity on that. I do appreciate it, and I apologize for interjecting.
No worries.
This is helpful. Thanks, Lisa.
And in fairness, it was Greg called for the motion and someone else made the motion. So in each case, we had someone make the motion. We just didn't have them try to articulate that motion from the floor. And in an AGM, this is a little more standard. It would be very different if we were doing a general meeting that didn't have a very prescribed agenda. I think you would see that very differently.
Sure. Excellent. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Lisa.
I don't see anything in the Q&A. And
Yeah, no, just a comment. So
yep, just a comment. No other questions so far.
Very good. We'll just give it another moment or so. So seeing there are no further motions or questions from the floor, I will now move to adjourn the meeting. I don't need someone to second this, but are all in favor?
I will launch that poll. And see people, we're at 15 right now. I need a couple of more to hit our required 51%. I know people aren't quick to want to adjourn.
They're having fun.
they're probably already gone.
Yeah.
There we are at 16. And we'll give it a second more. If there we are. If anyone hasn't voted, please vote. I'll give it a second more. And we are at 17 votes. I am now ending the poll. And here are your results.
Great. So the motion's carried. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. On behalf of the Belleville Chamber of Commerce, we certainly appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
So we had said that we would stay on the line for any media that are present in case
Correct.
they wanted to ask any questions. So I'm not sure if they're there. Lisa, I don't know if you want to.
I will, Bill, if I will unmute you if you would like. And I don't see any other media, but I'll take another quick look. Bill, you are unmuted.
Do you want to stop the recording at this point?
I shall.
Am I, can you hear me?
I will stop the recording as of now.
Okay, I'm just wondering if I'm being heard.
Yes.
Yep.
No.
Yep.